Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty, I guess let's get this thing going. Hi, my name is Alyssa Reese.
Hi,
I'm with
Alyssa.
Art in the Park under Summer Youth. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for your time. We know it's super early. We know you were probably tired. We just woke up.
Hi, my name is Jaden. I'm a recent graduate from Brookwood High School. About to go to college, and thank you for your time. These questions were made by the kids from SYEP, and they all came up with them together, and they chose six to ask you, or for me, us to ask you. So let's get into it.
I'll start. How did art become your passion?
That's a great question. Well, I think I've been an artist since I was a little kid. I grew up in a multicultural household. My dad's African American and my mom's Japanese. And, I think early on, because I was bilingual, people really thought that I had learning disabilities, actually. It turns out I do not. But art was a really wonderful way for me to express myself and communicate with people, especially since Japanese was actually my first language. And so I started taking art lessons really young. I started taking them in first grade. I started drawing first with a pencil and oil pastel. And then when I was in fourth grade, I had my favorite teacher, Mrs. Harley. She really encouraged me to be creative and make dioramas and kind of expand outside of just drawing and painting. And that was kind of it for me. I always spent my summers with my grandma in Japan making art, not art, but sewing with her. So I would sew as well. And, ever since I was a kid, I've been very encouraged to be an artist and explore my creativity. So I feel pretty lucky about that.
That's incredible. All right. Next question. Why focus on a utopian or futuristic aspect on African culture?
That's a great question. So my projects actually often are both utopian and dystopian. They're usually kind of a blend of both, but the larger project is called the Empathic Universe. And since I did grow up in this household where, multiple cultures were being engaged simultaneously, I wanted to explore that. Like, what does that look like? What does a world look like where, people who are different from one another can actually coexist and not, try to annihilate one another? Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
really the premise of my project. And sometimes, in the work, it's not utopian. Sometimes, things are not going well and things are not going right. So there's series of works that I've made that are really quite you know, um, fantastical in kind of negative ways. Especially after I lived in Brazil for a little bit when I graduated from graduate school. And I lived there for 2 years, and I was studying Northeastern Brazilian performance traditions. And most of the people in the Northeast of Brazil are kind of the descendants of enslaved Africans, indigenous people, and white colonial Brazilian settlers. So the performance traditions that they create are this kind of amalgam of all of this material that comes out of a very violent condition of plantation life in northeastern Brazil. And so the work that I was making at that point really did deal with that kind of like aggression and violence and stereotypes and the colonial imaginary, a very kind of white colonial imaginary, and the results of that. So my work really does range from being utopian to also dystopian, but the aim is utopian. The aim is by thinking about all of these things, considering them, how do we get past them? What can we create? What worlds can we build that are an empathic universe?
And I believe this next question is the one that I submitted personally. How has your art style changed from when you first started?
I first started, wow. Since I started when I was, 6 or 7, I think there have been some dramatic changes. Uh, the, like I said, at first it was mostly painting and drawing, and then I started making sculpture. And after I started making sculpture, I also started making performance work because I was interested in making costumes. The costumes turned into large scale multimedia installations. And I started including video in my work. So there's been this kind of gradual 20-year evolution of my work from just, 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional and also into 4 dimensions, which is like video and sound.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm gonna ask you the next three questions.
Great.
Um, how does it feel when you see your artwork in a museum?
It feels amazing. It feels amazing. Let's see. How does it feel? It really does feel amazing. I've wanted to be an artist since I was a kid. It's really not easy to be an artist. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance. Um, you have to find money to do your projects. You have to find money to pay your bills. I mean, so it's really quite challenging. You're a business person and you're also a creative, so you have to kind of have these two parts of your personality. So whenever I see the result of my efforts in a museum, I feel incredibly satisfied. And the best part for me is seeing audience reactions. Like I love seeing people go into the spaces and kind of explore them and think about things. And I also love seeing people post pictures of themselves in my installations on social media. Like I just love that. People, strangers from all over the country and all over the world, posting pictures of them interacting with these spaces I build. It's incredible. So it's great. I love it. So thank you for that question.
All right. Why use science fiction and fantasy in your art?
That's a good question too. It's so I don't, do you guys know Octavia Butler, the science fiction writer? Maybe a little bit. Okay, she's really great. She's one of the first Black feminist science fiction writers to really get a lot of attention in the United States and also in the science fiction community. Before her writing became popular, um, basically the field was dominated by white men. And when I was in graduate school, and she's much older, she's passed away now. But when I was in graduate school, I read one of her books. And I always loved science fiction. I always loved reading weird fantasy novels. And, I was a weird kid making art on my desk and, reading fantasy novels. It was not that strange. But reading her books, where especially there's a wonderful book called Kindred. It's really small. There was a TV series recently made about. Do you know the TV series Kindred?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Yeah, so Kindred. So that's based on one of her books. So that TV series Kindred is based on this fantastic little book, and it's all about the difficulties of a contemporary Black woman moving through time and space and going back to the plantation and what it looks like for her to try and live between these two spaces, like under the horrible, cruel conditions of the plantation and also in contemporary life. And she kind of keeps randomly going back and forth between those two spaces. And reading books like that, where you can deal with real issues that are both historical and contemporary, by using things like time travel and science fiction, became interesting to me through my exposure to her. So that's how I kind of deal with my work. I almost treat my art installations as if they're novels. And so I write these stories, I build these story worlds, and then I have people come and interact with them.
That's amazing. Last question. How or has your childhood affect affected your art?
Well, I think, I kind of answered that in my first answer, but I think, fantasizing, I think that's a really important part of childhood. A really important part of childhood is that you, especially before you go to school, especially before you learn, the alphabet, before you learn, about the world, like children are really flexible and they kind of are open to all sorts of possibilities. And I think that that's part of why I make artwork that looks almost like toys or very colorful or can appeal to a child, but can appeal to an adult as well. So I think my experience of growing up in a multicultural household really impacted the way that I perceive the world. And I really try in my installations to kind of express some of that within the context of the installation. So that was a pretty big impact. It's I feel very lucky to have grown up in that way.
Okay, when I said last question, I meant for you. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I would love to hear what you guys are doing at Art in the Park. Like what are the things that you're learning about? What are the things that you're doing? Obviously, you're talking to me here, the contemporary artist today, but I just love to hear a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Do you want to go first?
You can go first.
Wow. All right, cool. Since of course I am personally with SYEP, there's several other kids with SYEP. What we have been doing, we've been at events, tabling for events, showing art to the youth and whatnot. Not even just the youth, of course, parents, teachers. We were in July, we were teaching in art class. Teaching, we were basically helping kids with their art, letting them showcase it, that kind of thing. It was really nice. I know yesterday personally, my boss, I couldn't get to go, and of course it started raining, but they were tabling at the National Night Out and they were doing art there. So, it's mostly like bringing art into the community, showcasing that kind of thing.
Great. Are you an artist as well?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm more of the fashion design side of things.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Great. Are you in school for fashion design? Is that what you're interested in?
Yes.
Oh, great. Oh, that's so cool. That's really great. I actually love fashion and love looking at fashion. I could not imagine becoming a fashion designer because I don't think I'm that cool, but it's a very
Not
cool
about being
profession.
cool, just about not pricking your hand with the sewing machine.
Yep, yep, very practical. Very practical. And Jaden, what are you up to? I know you're starting school next year, and what are you thinking about majoring in? Like, what's going on for you?
Um, I have no idea what to major in,
It's
but
great.
I've been looking into like architecture and stuff like that. I really like it was, I don't know when it was, but it was, I do know when it was. I don't know who it was. It was sophomore year. I had art class and we learned about different like types of buildings and stuff, like different
Hmm.
eras. And
Hmm.
the way that somebody could think about that and like make it happen and like make like a cool design out of a building and make it sturdy enough to make it stay if like
Hmm.
happens is amazing to me. And I really did started like messing with it. So I
Oh,
go.
that's so cool. So what kind of buildings are your favorite? What's your favorite architecture?
The one I really liked the most was the Gothic era in England. I think it was. It was sophomore year. It was a while ago, but I definitely remember the Gothic era. It was like the giant cathedrals with like crosses on top and like they had like ridges on it. It was just really cool, and I was like, this is if somebody can do that. Like it was like back in like the 1800s. If somebody could do that then, imagine what we could do now
Hmm.
with creativity. You know? So it's like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, architecture is also a challenging field. So it's like being an artist or fashion designer. It's challenging, but it's a wonderful field. It's beautiful. You know, I was just in Korea with my dad and my daughter, and talk about architecture and fashion. There are streets in Seoul where fashion houses have their major buildings, like their major storefronts. And the architecture in each one of those buildings is super interesting and really unique. So like if you ever have a chance to visit, or even just like, you know, take a look at the architecture and fashion. So like Louis Vuitton has a really cool building actually. And so does was that other company? I'm really bad at fashion. I'm bad at remembering fashion house names. But Dior, it's Dior. Dior also has an absolutely gorgeous building. It's so cool to see what they did with those spaces.
Okay. If you wanted to shout out your social media, since this is the end, you can do that now.
Oh, thank you. So I only use Instagram really, because I'm old. Um, but it's Saya Woolfalk Studio.
Okay. Um, I guess that's the end.
Okay,
Thank you
great.
so much. Thank you,
Yes.
Aya. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you,
Thank
me.
you.
I know. Oh, this was so nice. Thank you so much. Those questions were lovely. And Alyssa, good luck with the fashion. It's very cool.
Thank you.
Where are you in school for fashion?
Right now I'm trying to get into FIT.
Cool. Great. Great. Yeah.
Hard, but yes.
You're gonna do it. I believe in you.
Thank you.
I believe in you. I believe in you. It's a great program. Actually, you know, not I know you want to matriculate, but at FIT they also have a continuing education program. So for very, very inexpensive, you can take classes at FIT not for credit. So if you want to build your portfolio, I did some of that when I was in my 20s, actually. If you want to build your portfolio, you can take a class and it's, you know, very reasonable.
Yeah. All right. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Okay, so
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good
Okay.
day.
You too.
Good morning.
Bye.